excited about being here in North Dakota. We do this in Minnesota, and it started years ago, and it's really become really popular. If you know somebody who hasn't come, they're too busy, really not too busy for this. I don't know if you, just listening to Scott Wilson's worth the price of admission, and hearing his heart for just developing fathers within our movement. So just a lot of things going on that's really good that Titus has got going for you. So encourage others to be there. I'm going to kind of go through a little bit of history where they're putting that back there. I started Cold Spring in 1994, and it's my first church plant. My skill level was at 0. I had no clue what I was doing, why I was there. But we started with a Bible study, and I started praying like my life depended on it, because it did. And we started at the American Inn, and I had just 6 people. And we got a picture. We took a picture way back then when we had 6 people. It was actually 4. Someone said, "Well, we had 3." Well, does that include you? He says, "No." So that 6 includes me, because I like to inflate numbers, and my daughter. So we actually had 4. And so we took a picture of the 4 of us. There were 6 of us there, and we started in the American Inn. That's in a bedroom. Church planting wasn't popular, so my presbyter, who was not a very positive person when it came to church planting, I was the closest church plant to him, and he thought it was a threat. Well, I'm 25 miles from him. I'm not going to threat to anybody, especially when someone I don't know what I'm doing. So when I went to the sectional meeting, he heard that I only had a handful of people. I was meeting in a motel room. We flipped the bed up into the wall, and we had 12 chairs up, and 6 people showed up. The first Tuesday night, or Thursday night, and then the next Thursday night, nobody showed up. For 6 weeks, all the way till Christmas, nobody showed up. So we put an ad in the paper. River of Life, or the Bible study, was shut down until after Christmas. We'll come back on the 12th. Came back on the 12th, but when he asked me in November to come and share about my church plant, I told him that we had a room was half full. And he thought it was a disaster. So when they're thinking half full, they're thinking like 50 people. And I heard someone say, "You got 50 people?" I didn't say that. I said our room was half full. But I didn't correct anybody. Wow, a meeting room with half full. So now he's really threatened. So he asked me to come back up in January. I was just happy we didn't have a sectional meeting in December, because I have to tell him I had nobody. Didn't have any for 6 weeks. So we had 12 people, and we hung with those 12. So when I reported, I said, "Guys, we're packed out, and we have to move out of there." And we moved out on April 11th, which was Easter Saturday, and we had 44 people. And then we had a grand opening in July, which is the worst time to plant a church. We had 88 people, but then the next week we had 44 people. So we had up and down, and then we planted our first church at 60. So I don't have maybe all the hope for the heart. So I'll just show you the original 6 there. You want me to just run it? And I'll, a lot of times people say, "Denny, if I had what you had, I could do what you did." And you got to understand, I had nothing. I started from scratch. I had 6 people, all Catholics. In fact, even today, last time we did a survey was probably in 2015. 3 or 5% of my church was Assembly God Born and Raised, 5%. The rest were others, or mostly Catholic in our area. So we took that and started to go. We went to, we've gone through 4 phases. I build buildings. When I build a building, I want it to say something, and I want it to do something. I just don't build a blank space. I want it to do something. Some years ago, I interviewed an old-time Pentecostal guy, born in the teens, So it was a long time. I said, "Hey, what's changed in the church?" Well, he said the church used to be the center of community. It's where we went to vote. That's where we went to school meetings. That's where everything. We got our vaccines there. Everything happened at the church, and now the church is not the center of the community. I said, "That's what I'm going to do." So for me, my success has been building buildings where it's become the center of our building, and everyone uses it. The school uses it a lot. The granite company right across the street uses it a lot. They fly people in from all over the world, and they bring them to our building, and they do training. leadership training, product training, safety training is all done in our building. And of course, when they come there, they're milling through some of my publications, and they're looking at things. So make your church the center of your community. So 3 things I'm going to share with you. We got it there. Go ahead and put that one up. There we go. Now expand that. There you go. Perfect. All right. All right, you want to just run it right along there? Okay, so that's my family. This is the greatest tool for evangelism in rural setting. This is my son. He opened the doors to the athletic teams. So all the athletic people, I coached hockey. He was on the hockey team, then he was on the hockey team. So the good-looking boys are my sons. The other 2 are my son-in-laws. So he opened the door to the school system for me, for the athletic teams, football, hockey especially. And we'd have 11 families came in from his hockey team into my church that I coached. So being involved in your community, becoming aware. So this is my youngest daughter. She came 11 years after him. And so she was a little surprised. We couldn't be never surprised. But she's kept me young. These are, he's my worship leader. No, you were talking staff. You guys have no staff, right? Because I had no staff for years. That I do a section in a rural pastors conference on how to hire staff, how to attract them. And this girl kind of grew up in my home. These 2 got married. He said, Denny, I've never had a dad model. Could you help me through the proposal process and some of the things that guys have to deal with? This is my daughter, and of course that's Kirby. Some of them don't know Kirby St. John. That's my daughter, gorgeous. That's my wife, gorgeous. I don't know who those guys are. And then that's my daughter and our daughter-in-law and son-in-law. My grandkids here, all hockey players, and a blue chip. The blue chip hockey players, the best of the best. And they're going to be incredible hockey players. This guy right back here, he's born in 2012, and there's 20, they picked 20 kids out of the whole state of Minnesota, and he made the team. He's the smallest one. He made the team. They play like Winnipeg and Sault Ste. Marie and Las Vegas, and they're in a tournament this week, kind of following that. They won last night against, I don't know where it was, they won 11-0, and so that's my family. But what helped me in rural ministry was my family. They were my tools for evangelism. These 2 guys opened doors to the athletic field. My daughter was into fine arts. She opened up to the drama team. My youngest daughter, she introduced me to a generation like way younger than me, so I was able to stay current. Was there reading books in elementary school when all my other kids were getting married or in senior high or college, and then here's I got a kindergartner, So she kind of opened that door as well. So kept me current with the school. So 3 things I'm going to hit on here. I'm going to pass up that next one. My wife here and I, we just had a fight, and where it came, and she says all these kids, all my kids and my grandkids all look like me. I say don't. They don't. And she says they do. So she just sent me a picture where someone's expecting, and look at this next picture of this ultrasound. I'll tell you right now, none of them look like me. He says, well, here's an ultrasound, and I'm telling you right now, even the babies in the womb look like you. And there it is. Now tell me, that does not look anything like me, does it? Besides that, it turned out to be a girl. Anyhow. So here's 3 things you want to do in a rural setting. Be aware. All right? Aware would be the first point. Be aware. Here in the book of Acts, Paul walks into town, and what do they have? They have, we're worshiping all kinds of idols. There's an idol or a god for everybody. And it says this, Paul stood in the midst of these people and said, men of Athens, I perceive that in all things you are very religious. And that's my community. My community is very, very religious. They're Catholic, but you know what? They're getting abortions. All right? They don't practice their faith. We've got a Chapel Hill that's it borders a cult or a demonic shrine with Mary up there, attributing her to stopping the grasshopper infestation back in the early teens. And it was really done by 5 governors who prayed and fasted. So being aware of what's in your community, what are we seeing? So we did our last phase. When we did a phase, I have an executive pastor who was very, very conservative. And the executive pastor says, you want to run that?
Yes.
All right. The executive pastor says, okay, there go those pictures. Back one more. Go back one. Wrong way.
Right.
That's zeros.
There it is. There's the 6 people. That's my daughter. That's me. Of course, I haven't changed a whole lot. And they really weren't a part of it. He just filled in. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are 4 I had. And we had that for quite a while. And then we had our opening service. We had 44 people. Then we went to the high school. That's the Alamo building. Walked out, smelled like cigarette smoke. This is the high school. Just again, a handful of people. But this is here today. So we started with a seat of people, and we ended up there. So go one more. That's our first phase. That's my wild game feed. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Another pictures. Again, my children's church. So we started with a small seed. And what I did is become aware of what's in your community. I talked to the mayor. I talked to the superintendent. And I'll ask the mayor, I said, Mayor, what's going on in the community? What do we need in our community? He said, well, we need more things for aftercare for our children. School aftercare for our children. So I became aware. So, okay, I need to really focus on children. So my vision for Cold Spring is to reach young families. I'm not sure if you're on the aware one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We'll get there. But anyhow, being aware of what's going on. What is your community need? I don't need a youth pastor, I need a children's pastor. So I'm big into volunteers. I've got 55,000 square feet today of building. Mine's one of the biggest buildings of all Cold Spring that's being used. But we started really small. So I let everybody use my building. It's becoming the center of my community. And when they come in, they tell me what the community's looking for. All right, I'm reaching young families. That's my goal. It hasn't changed. I'm reaching young families. So everything I do speaks to young families. You know what's going on in your community. Here's what's true across the nation. 43% of rural communities see drug addiction as a major problem. I have drug sales in my parking lot on youth night. And the sheriff said, I won't even come in the parking lot. I said, Denny, as long as we got them coming to their church, there's hope. I said, Phil, they're selling drugs in my parking lot. He said, yeah, but they're not selling to your kids. They just know we're not going to be there. So he'll leave it alone. But that's what's taking place all over the country. 43% have a drug problem. Meth problem in rural areas is epidemic. 23% see a lack of access to good medicine as a problem. 40% say that their current financial needs. You don't get paid a lot in a rural community. My sister-in-law is a legal secretary. She makes $90,000 a year in Minneapolis. So she moves to my town. They want to move to our town, $30,000. She has to lose $60,000 just to move to our area. So they see their current financial means is not enough and will not get better in the future. So they don't get paid a lot. The pay scale is way lower than the metro area. So when you live in our area, you'll see that not only that, but as ministers as well. We see the pay scale is a little different. If you pastored here, if you pastored in Cullum or a small town. So this is just becoming aware of what's in your community. It helps you preach your messages. You got to speak in the heart of your community. But number one, be aware. What do we face in the rural communities? Now this is nationwide. The highest rate of suicide is in rural areas. Anyone have suicide in your area at all? Have a few? Okay, it's epidemic in my area. I had 5 people die during 2020 during COVID. 4 were suicides. 4 suicides. 4 young men and 1 young lady. 1 young lady, she's the next year, so that'd be 5 total since 2020. So one of natural causes, 4 suicides. So we speak a lot of mental health issues because people are isolated, and then when COVID comes, you're considered, you've got to be even more isolated. But we're more relational. 40% of rural population, all of or most of their neighbors. So I walk downtown and people are like, hey pastor, how you doing? Hi pastor. I walk downtown Minneapolis, nobody knows me. I don't care how popular a pastor you are. You walk downtown in a suburb, I don't Rob Caroling walk through his town, nobody knows who he is. But when you're in a rural setting, you're a big star. You go to in your city or suburb, you're just a little bitty star. So you can be a big star because everyone knows you. But they're also typically older. Our community is typically older, but this is changing since COVID because people have learned they can work virtual. So they're leaving Minneapolis for a safer environment and they're coming to our community. So I picked up 3 families this year. All younger families who can work on the computer and still stay connected to their job. But typically, you've got an older community. How many of you have communities that are dying? What's the population today?
It's still about 1,000, but the majority are older farmers.
What was the peak? What was the peak population?
Not a clue. I wasn't very much further than 1,000.
I have one up at northern Minnesota. The pastor said, Denny, we sit on the sidewalk Friday night and wave as people are moving downtown every week. Families are leaving with U-Haul trucks leaving town. How big is your town again?
330.
Is it growing or is it going this way?
It's kind of,
Yeah.
mostly down.
Your town?
Pretty stable.
Yeah, pretty stable.
4,200
4,200.
and growing. I'd say.
Okay. But another thing that's really difficult to understand, and this which we teach in my rural pastors conference, is rural people are typically more difficult to change. They don't want to change. In fact, our community, Cold Spring, they had a meeting. We became a threat to the community. They're non-progressive. They're stopping any apartments or low-income housing. They're just not a progressive community. So they're skeptical of change. They don't like change. So I was, of course, a big threat to them because we were Assembly of God and they'd never heard of Assembly of God before. So how many of you have communities that you can say, yeah, they're not really going to embrace change a lot here? Yeah. So my Rural Pastors Conference, it's called Rural Pastors. If you go on the website, ruralpastors.com. I run that in October this year. They don't always embrace outsiders, so it took me a long time to, in fact, I got run out of the drugstore when I tried to promote my event at I was having a tent crusade, and I was going to put a poster up, and he grabbed me by the collar and took me out the sidewalk, crumpled the poster off, threw it in the garbage, and said, don't ever promote your church in my business again. You don't belong here. The banker just then called me across the street, went in, he said, Denny, I'm the only other Protestant, there's only one other Protestant in town. I don't know how you're gonna make it, I'm gonna sell my bank. I just don't think you're gonna make it. He is the only one that showed me any kindness, gave me an office, and used an office in an alley, back in an alley, kind of a dumpy old place, but it was an office. And I got there and opened the mail all the same day, and Colleen Woods, a Lutheran Charismatic, said, I saw your story in the paper, I think you should get out of town. This community does not embrace change. And that welcome to Cold Spring. So that's why people say that if I had what you had, I could do what you do or did. But you can take what you have, what God gives you, and God's always calling you to success, but you have to, number one, be aware of what's going on in your community. We're more racist. We're more segregated than the city. How many have multicultural community? Latinos?
Couple families.
Swedes and
Black
Germans.
family.
Swedes and Germans? Yeah, that's really.
Ours is mostly German, but there are a few mixed families.
Yeah. See, we had for years very few Latinos. Now we got lots of Latinos. That's all changing. And I got a lot of Somalis. They're really disrupting things. But so, okay, you're aware of what's going on. The next thing you want to do is build a bridge. Build a bridge. Now, that whole idea where Paul walks in and says, wow, I see you're really religious people, you're worshiping all these gods. So he kind of brings that in and he says, listen, I want you to know. So he's not going to make a bridge. He's not going to criticize all these idols. He doesn't criticize it. So that's a joke there, that one, God of fertility, you got to be kidding me. That's a joke. He doesn't do that. And I think a lot of times we in real settings have more of a negative mindset. We come in and we want to we want to tear everything down, the other churches, politicians. Don't do that. Don't do that. Paul didn't do that. He says, listen, I found an altar with this inscription, to the unknown God. What he's doing is making a bridge from all these idols, and now he's got to find a way to work God in there. So, oh, here's one, to the unknown God. Let me tell you who he is. So he's making a bridge. So you have to be a bridge builder in your community, especially if you're going there for the first time. So he says, therefore, the one whom you worship, without even knowing, I'm going to tell you who he is. See how he builds the bridge? The other bridge, Jesus was really good at this. He's a woman at the well. She's a Samaritan, as you know. Samaritans and Jews have nothing to do with each other. They hate each other. Half-breeds and purebreds. You know, they just don't have anything to do with each other. So Jesus goes to the well and get water and says, hey, you guys go into town and get some food. I'm going to sit here and talk to this lady. They don't know he's going to talk to the lady because they think, well, you see her coming, but he's not going to talk to her because she's a Samaritan. Well, Jesus says, hey, what are you here for? Or the lady says to him, what are you here for? So I'm here to drink. So he's aware of what the need is. Okay, water. She's thirsty. So be aware what the need is. But then he builds a bridge. He says, listen, the water I have, you drink this. And what happens? You'll never thirst again. So he's building that bridge. And that's if you're aware of what's going on in your community, you can bring a positive impact through your pulpit. And I don't care where you're at. So, Pastor, I only got 10, 15 people. In my church, 12 people. That's all I had for a number of years. Just a handful of people. But what happens in a small town, what you speak in the pulpit goes everywhere. People go to the beauty salon and they'll start talking about, yeah, what'd you do? What'd your pastor speak on? Oh, he spoke on the Holy Spirit, or he spoke on mental health, Really, what was that all about? They're telling them. Rob Caroling's a friend of mine. He's planted a church the same time we did in River Valley. Things exploded now, but he spent $15,000 on flyers to promote his church. Anyone have that money in your back pocket to say, I'm gonna market my church with flyers? If you do, let me know, because I didn't have it. But what I did have is I've got 3 beauty salons. So I get my hair cut, always do business in town. I get my hair cut in town, I sit down, and they would ask me, what's going on? Well, I've got a tent crusade coming this week, and here's this guy bringing a football player, and I would tell him what's going on in church, and then I'd leave. And that was better than a mass mailer. Because that woman told everybody for the rest of the week what was going on in my church. But I'd sometimes get my hair cut twice. Because that's doubling my mass marketing. So I went to the other one, and guys said, hey, can you kind of trim this up and kind of straighten out the sideburns a little bit? I don't really need a big haircut, just a light trim. And she'd trim and she'd ask me the same thing. So I didn't have money. I paid $20, $10 per haircut, and that was my mass marketing, and it worked. I'd find out. When I hit a certain number, I'd go to the school and bring my kids lunch they forgot at home, and the secretary said, hey, we heard you had this many people. I said, how do you know that? I haven't even counted it. Well, that's what they're talking about all over town. So you've got mass marketing in your town without the money. Just be aware of what's going on and start making your bridge, and watch what happens. And use things you like to do as a part of your bridge. You need to become an insider. Now, you're an outsider when you first come. How long have you been in your community?
8 years.
8 years.
7.
Almost 2.
2. It took me 5 years before I became an insider in my community. You have to work your way in, but you do that by loving your community. You shop there. You're there. Every small town has a parade. Anyone here not have a parade? In Minnesota, everyone's got a parade. Always have a parade, so we always had a float. It was the dumbest thing. But you know what? Who's that? That's that new church, So we tried everything we could to be visible as possible as we can. Don't hide in your office. Do prayer walks, but don't let people know as you're doing prayer walks. Walk into the bank, buy a candy bar, talk to somebody. Be praying for your community that way, and learn to become an insider. I coach sports, so our town's a big sports community. We just had someone drafted by the Dallas Cowboys. Took a picture with him last Sunday. He's heading out for Dallas. He's going to be the left tackle for the Dallas Cowboys. So that's pretty cool. So, you know, I want to make sure that he knows that I'm going to stay connected with him. Did you know that star on the side of the Dallas Cowboy helmet? Ever see that? The star. You know what that stands for? What the star is? I didn't know it stood for something. Did you know what it stands for?
The Lone Star State.
No, that's their Yelp rating. Anyhow.
Oh. I'm a Cowboys fan.
But you have to become an insider. Be visible. Be there. Let them know you're okay. Volunteer for something. My wife's always volunteering. The community school has a showcase where the businesses in the area come and they set up their businesses, market their business in a showcase in the high school. How many of you have high schools in your town? You have a high school in your town?
Yeah, K through 12.
Perfect. Yeah, that's
nice,
good.
nice facility.
Yeah, I volunteered for the school, volunteered to read for children, and kind of see, it kind of helps you stay current with the kids, see how they think, and you can go there, because I had nothing to do. I just go to school and say, can I read with the kids? Yeah, you read, here's Kyle's dad, he's going to read for us today, and be there, and all of a sudden they like you, they're starting to like you, because you're volunteering. You'll never become an insider by hiding in your office. I'm not an office person. I'm an outsider. Stay connected. Kids, okay, holidays. Use holidays. Use Christmas and Easter. It's a big deal in rural communities. Big deal. Not so much in the cities anymore. Easter and Christmas is no big deal. So I do a Christmas kids program. We only had the first one we did had 5 kids. Our first Christmas Eve service, we had 7 people. And outside of my family. Okay, 7 plus 5. So we had 12 people in that first Christmas. 7 people showed up. My secretary was one of them. She says, "This is lame." I said, "No, we're going to keep doing it." Why? Because it's a Catholic community. And now, I don't know if I have a picture. Now we have to have 4 Christmas services. But I start with just 7 people. You got to do something to become an insider. So our Easter services, we do 5 Easter services every week. And my first Easter service was something lame. I got 12 men together, and we did it's a popular little drama presentation where all the disciples, the Last Supper, and it's just really stupid. Is it I, Lord? Is it I? But people came from all over the area to watch 12 men perform the Last Supper, and it was dumb. Kids, someone came up to me and said, "You asked me to do the get out and kill you." And people loved it. They loved it. They came out, and there's just a handful of people showed up, but it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until now we have to run multiple services. We don't do the Last Supper anymore. We do in Christmas time or at Easter time. We do just a lot of worship and kind of a creative service that we do. It's not a typical service. Easter egg hunts. You do Easter egg hunts? I've talked to some pastors in rural settings. I don't know what to do. Do an Easter egg hunt. He says, "No, that's not Bible." I don't care. Do it. The bunny's not. That's offensive to law. Do it. Get out there. Mark's wife. Who said they were friends of Mark's wife? Yeah. Mark got his. I talked to him about this. You know what he did? He bought 2 bunny costumes and 2 pink mopeds, and drove around Fairbanks, Alaska, in just a handful of people, and passed it out. The Easter Bunny is passing out promotion for their Easter egg hunt, for their Christmas service to all the kids and parents all over town. They're waving. They're trying to wave them over. So here comes the Easter Bunny, Mommy, and they're waving over the grocery store, the school, and passing out these things. He only had 100 people when he did it. Now he's one of the fastest growing churches in America. So you're gonna have to work with your vision when you talk to your board about, you do this. I know Jesus never criticized culture. He used culture to promote the gospel. We can do the same as well. Just do the same thing. Do something on Halloween, but don't do something like we do a harvest party. We have inflatables. Bring inflatables in for your kids. See, I'm targeting young families. These are my bridges. I'm aware of what's going on. The mayor says we need things for the kids. Now I'm making the bridge. Okay, I'm doing things for young families. So I do the Easter egg hunts. You do these things. We give all kinds of ideas out, things that work for us. I don't give you anything that does not work, did not work for us. Center shot is, I call them my points of entry into my church. You have to have points of entry. You just can't say, I'm a great preacher, why isn't anyone coming? Well, I'm a lousy preacher. So I got to find other points of entry. Those are the things you do to bring people into your church. Here's one of the greatest tools for evangelism that I have seen. In fact, one Baptist church, I'm on the board, one Baptist church, it's called Center Shot. So what I do is I market, and the high school will do a community ed program during the summertime, and they print up in their paper all the things that are available for the summer. Well, I run a Center Shot for kids 8 to 12 years of age, and they show up. And it turned out that we have to do multiple of these, because everyone wants to learn to shoot bow. I've asked pastors in North Dakota, more pastors in North Dakota. I have not talked to one pastor so far. I know there are that hunt. I didn't hunt when I come to rural study, but I need to become an insider. So I said, okay, I don't fish, I don't hunt, but now I do, all right? I do that because I need to become the insider. I need that bridge to my community. I need to get to the place where they say, we love you, we accept you. You know, so Center Shot, and I'm on the board. I've got a trailer full of Center Shot equipment. Any rural pastor can use. Got to be under 10, city of under 10,000. You can use it for free. Just go pick it up, use it for 6 to 8 weeks, but market it before you get it. Market it, and then we'll train. We got a video in here to train your men, but you need women because more girls show up 8 to 12 years of age than guys, and it's become the most popular sport in America is archery in the school systems. It's becoming the most popular sport in America. So we do Center Shot, and it's a great centershot.org. Go on, and you can get all the information you need, or you can call me, and I'll give you the material for free. And otherwise, it's going to cost you. And the reason I do it for free because it costs you about $3,000 to $4,000, and nobody has that. So Center Shot is a big deal. I don't know if you have a picture of the float here that we have. Here's our float. There it is. So here's Center Shot right here. Go back one if you can. You can leave it there. We're past the train. The train is a vision. I used to be a children's pastor. Anyone children's pastors here?
I used to be.
Yeah, children's pastor. And I'm always a creative thinker. And it was a church with 150 acres. And I said, I want to build a children's church off-site. What? Yeah, on our property. We got 850 acres in the woods. And there's a little meadow back there. I could put a city in there. I could have horses back there and chickens. And I could have ducks back there. And the kids can go to, I'll build a little building over here. And this will be the bakery. We'll have food with milk and donuts there. And over on the other side of, you're going to have here like a place they can go shop. They can buy little shirts or pencils or backpacks for school. And right in the middle, I'll have my children's church. And I just keep expanding this little city out there in the back. And they'd say, well, where would you get the wood? I said, you guys are tearing down your barns. Give me your barns. We don't need anything fancy for kids, just a 2x10 plank on cinder blocks, and we'll sit in there and make a nice stage, get some electricity back there, and we'll have that children's church. He said, well, what do you mean? Who's telling her about? Eddie, you're tearing your barn down. Give me the lumber, and I'll build something. And Philip, you're tearing down a barn. Give me the lumber. Find anyone that's tearing barns down, and give me that lumber, and I'll build this city out of used lumber. I'll pay a penny for it. And they're looking at me like, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. One guy said, fold his arms. I know when they fold, when your board members fold your arms, you know you're in trouble.
Yep.
And he says, how are you going to get back there? I said, train. Well, that's what we're going to have to spend money. We're going to get like 2 trains. Not 55-gallon plastic barrels with holes cut out, pulled behind an old lawnmower tractor or 4-wheeler. No, I want an engine, locomotive engine. And they about ran me out of that board meeting. We need a new children's pastor. I was so discouraged. So I told that when I planted the church in Cold Spring, and 2 ladies said, did you hear that? I said, yeah. And they both at the same time said, we're supposed to build that train. So this is another church. So when you come to my church, this is how they get the children's church in the summertime. So that was built by my people in my church. You have the same talent in your church. You have the same talent. You can take that picture and say, let's build this train. And we use it in all the parades. And this parade is the first time we've ever ran it. What's that say? First prize. we win. We win at about every parade we go to, and people come from all over to look at our train. Kids throw out candy, and they're having fun, and they're seeing their friends. Hey, Billy, come on, get on the train. You know, they're not even from our church. They're getting on the train. Say, gotta get on the train. You know, have them throw candy. So we got all these kids driving around our community of this train, and that is what Disneyland quality. So we insured our church. They said, oh, we're gonna have to insure that train. And I said, what'd you pay for the train? They said, I think it's like $40,000, but it was all donated by people in the church. And the guy came back and says, nah, we just ran it to our books. That's about $120,000 to $140,000 train. You know, so we really stress excellent in everything we do, and that is. I told that last church that I was at, they didn't buy into the idea. I said, you know, guys, if you could just go with this, people come from 100 miles to ride my train. And they said, you're ridiculous. I mean, they're cow full of their hands now. And then, so the church, I told the story in my church at Cold Spring, and that someone come from 100 miles. The second summer we had pouring rain, and an older lady came in with 2 kids. They said, oh, they're just bawling. I said, what's wrong? You okay? You get wet? She says, no, they don't care about getting wet. They came to church to ride the train. Oh, I'm so sorry. We don't ride the train when it rains like this, or drive the train. And she said, I understand, but they don't. We came 100 miles to ride your train. You know, so they come a long ways. There's no cities out there. So volunteer fire departments, EMT. I'm a chaplain for the police department. While I was here at Trinity, I had a call from someone that passed away. So they're always looking for help. So you have to be the bridge, okay? Be aware of what's going on in your community. Put your sermons around it, but build a bridge. You have to be a bridge in your community, and then to contextualize. I think that's the next one there. Contextualize, or put into context what you need to do. So Jesus said, whoever drinks of this water that I give will never thirst. So that's his message. And she buys into it. She responds to the message. You know, Paul says to those worshiping all these idols, he says, therefore what you worship in ignorance, I proclaim to you. All right, so he's put into context, and take the altar and begin to contextualize truth in the heart language of people. Now, there's not a lot of really highly educated people in your community. When I started, I had a bunch of dummies. I attracted them because I'm a dummy. All right, so like attracts like. You know? But now I've got, if you were in my last session, you've got to reinvent yourself and prove yourself. Now I've got doctors and lawyers and teachers, administrators in my church because I speak in their language. So understand their language. Develop common ground. Jesus is pulling them on the common ground. Paul did the same thing. He says, look, they're idol worshipers. I'm a God worshiper. Let's get them on the same ground. Let's put this into context. Jesus was really good at it. So we need to do this in rural areas. Too many church leaders are equipped to reach a world that no longer exists. Let me say that again. I don't know if that's on here or not. But too many church leaders are equipped to reach a world that no longer exists. Now, I'm not the kind of guy that believes that, oh, I'm just a pastor that's a maintenance guy. I just come in and just tend the flock. I don't believe that. I think every church can grow. Now, I've had pastors come to me and say, that really hurt me and challenged me. They've come to my rural pastors ministry. Everyone that's come that's followed our systems, everyone, 100%, has seen substantial growth in themselves, in their marriage, and in their church. And we talk about the 3M. We've got Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing, that's 3M. We have the 3M in our rural pastors. How is it going to change? Me, my ministry, or my marriage? And we stress that in our rural pastors conference. So it has to change you. You're no longer relevant. When you're no longer relevant, it's pretty hard to reach the world. So what's the style of preaching? You know, what's your style? I know the assemblies. I'm a Catholic guy. I came in. Screamers scare me. I don't know if you've got screamers in the state or if you're a screamer, but that wouldn't go over, and I had people get up and walk out. I brought a missionary in and just screamed. Catholics, I mean, one lady screamed, Jesus, 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 right up and down my aisle. I had to stop her and say, hey, stop that. She came in and she said, why are you quenching the Holy Spirit? I said, I'm not quenching the Holy Spirit. She said, why can't I run up and down and just worship my Jesus? And I said, well, I'm not too sure it's Jesus you're worshiping or you're worshiping worship. You know, so I said, you're scaring my Catholics. See, and remember, I'm only 3 to 5% Assembly of God born and raised. The rest are Catholic, Lutheran, Jehovah's Witness, Mormon, Methodist, Episcopal. I mean, they're coming from all different churches. And I said, tell you what, Sandy, go to the Catholic Church this week and run up and down and scream like that. She said, no, they'll never. Yeah, well, those are the people that are in my church now. I mean, these are people that haven't been to Catholic church in 5 to 20 years. They're coming to me now. So she says, well, I'm leaving church. I'm sorry to see you go. Don't worry about when someone leaves. There's nothing wrong with having when you have a splinter, don't worry about it. Just don't have a split. And if splinters are left long enough, they will become a splinter. And she was a splinter in my side. So I said, I tell you what, Sandy, if you ever decide to come back, I want you to know, this church is going to grow so fast, your seat will be gone. She was only gone 6 months, went to a church where they let people do, I hope I'm not offending anyone, but I call it crazy. A little more, and let me say this nicer, a little more expressive worship. Our hands are raised, people are crying at every service. We have people singing with full volume. We don't have people screaming, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. So she comes back 6 months, and she walked up to me after church and said, you're right, my seat's gone. Now I had disciplined her very harsh. It was difficult. And the sad thing about she came back, and now I've got a close friend, but then they moved away to Wausau, Wisconsin. But, so your style, I'm a conversational guy. Sometimes I'll sit in the chair. Before that was even popular, I do that in my youth group back in the 70s. I'd sit in the chair. Now everybody's sitting in the chair. I use a table like this. Before whoever made that popular, we do that in our youth group. We call it creative communication. And we just sit there and hundreds of people got saved. So I don't know what your style is. If you're not responding to it, change your style. Now they tell me that my generation had to change 3 styles 3 different times. From the time you enter ministry to the time you're my age. You guys enter ministry at this level will have to change 5 different times. That's how quickly culture is changing. So understand that and watch what they're doing. That's why I hang out with children and youth. We got people coming to our church that say, I can't believe. We just moved the community. I can't believe all the young people. We have 14 baby dedications 3 weeks ago, 18 baby dedications 3 weeks ago. I'm going to have another 14th on Children's Day, the 12th of June. And we had more baby dedications than any church in the state of Minnesota. Well, I'm focused on young families. That should be, right? We had more people baptized in the water. Remember, I started with just 6 people, but did the things I'm sharing with you, become aware. Make a bridge. Make people love you. That's that bridge thing. And when I build with excellence. Everything we do with excellence. I do not let my staff get on the pulpit with a sloppy goose. I dress like this. I do this. This is the reason I wear this jacket, is because I appreciate we have volunteers. I don't have any hired staff that clean my building, that mow my lawn. I've got 20 acres of property. I've got 3 houses that I own around the property. And it's all maintained, upkeep, the gardens, the courtyards, the shrubs, the vacuuming, the window washing, the bathrooms, all are done by volunteers. We did that from the beginning because I didn't have staff. There was nobody there, and so I asked for volunteers. If we do this, people will come. And they believe it. Now we're building again, and I told the board, I think we're at the point now we need to hire staff. And they said, no, we aren't. I got volunteers coming to me and saying, why won't Denny let me clean? You think we can clean the new sanctuary? And so I'll take the bathrooms, I'll do the kitchen, the new kitchen, I'll take the kitchen. So our volunteers are already getting in line to clean a building I don't even have yet. So you have to learn how to do that. I teach that in rural pastors, how to attract and keep volunteers. So I appreciate that. That's what this jacket, we had the Olympics this year, right? So we did our appreciation the first week of February with an Olympic theme. So we wore blue jackets, white shirts, or red jackets. This is our logo. and blue shirts or white shirts, whatever you wanted, and blue jeans or white jeans. And we looked like the Olympics, and then we gave our volunteers out gold medals. And we served, my staff and I, and my board and their wives, we served them, and we appreciated them. We highlighted them, and we called a couple out. And I've got a lady that drives probably 35 miles, doesn't come to my church, but she says, Pastor, can I clean your bathrooms? Okay. You know, so she cleans the whole, the old part of our church, not built in 2005.
10 minutes.
Yeah, okay, so appreciate that. I dress like this because my banker dresses like this. My banker had a three-piece suit on, I wear a three-piece suit. But I walk in, my banker's got tennis shoes on, his feet are on the desk, he's got a polo shirt and jeans. He says, hey Danny, how's it going? So if I walk in a three-piece suit, and someone in Minneapolis will say, yeah, you really need to dress up a little bit. No, I do iron my jeans. My wife's upset. She preached last Sunday, she said, hey, how many here have iron your jeans? And nobody raised their hand. See, Danny? Because Danny makes me iron jeans every Sunday morning. So I want to be just a bump of balls to my banker, all right? So I'll wear his jeans, but I won't look like I slept in them. And then have systems. Have your systems. That's a part of your, when you put things into context, have systems in place. Start with prayer. And then who do you want to reach? My first hire was really a children's pastor. It really was a volunteer. What I do is I share vision. I think I share vision very well. And so I asked the church, I said, listen, we got 40 people now, and I got about 7, 8 of them are children. Can I get a volunteer for the children's ministry and later? I'll volunteer. So I was a children's pastor. I just kind of trained her a little bit, gave her my material. She ran with it. The church began to grow. I said, yeah, it's going to the point. I need a volunteer for, can I get a volunteer to be a secretary? I need a volunteer to be a secretary. But I'd always tell them why, what would happen. I tell people this, that every time I raise up a leader, I grow by 14 people. So every time I got a children's pastor, I will grow by 14 people. You say, where did you get that? I don't know, I think I made it up. But it works, you know, it works. One person in the leadership, so you have, they just did it the other day. Said, Pastor, we listed our staff and we multiplied it by 14. And that's what our attendance is. So I've never done it works. I got it from somebody. So, but my system's to reach my target group, all right? Develop those systems. You're going to do it by intent or default, all right? I'd rather do it by intent. You create them. Any questions you have? You can do big things in small places, yeah.
I have a question. I'm in a small town community and we have this problem. I don't know if a lot of people do, but we have a revolving door issue.
Yeah.
People will come in and then after a while they'll go somewhere different. Is there a way to, I don't know, shut that revolving door or change that door?
Yeah, there is. We do that at Real Pastors Conference. And if you, first of all, take responsibility. Don't blame anybody. Okay? It's a good question. What you're saying is, I need to figure this out. And as a good leader, that's what good leaders do. They say, okay, up the game in your preaching style. I interview them and ask them why they left. Most of the people who leave my church are hurt. Somebody hurt them. And they're so easily offended today. Some people have left because I did preach on same-sex marriage. But they had to come back. So I try to be relevant. And I try to figure out a style by the gospel. What is my context? How do I deliver that? I'm very visual. So I have my train on the pulpit. Said, I told you this would happen. And I use that train. And how many of you here, because your kids love to ride the train, and all these new people are, yeah, my kids are, I'm here in your church. So I do something to make it the most exciting place in the community. Always do something. Don't sit there and get depressed, because I did for a while over people leaving my church. So I'm up the game in preaching. Start reading leadership books. So I'm not a leader, I'm a servant. So I read all the leadership books I could read. Maxwell's, of course, my favorite. We're reading, my staff is now reading No Limits. That'd be a good one for you to read. All of you read No Limits. So start up in the game, start growing, and then become creative. If you can, come to the Real Pastors Conference.
I'd love to.
Yeah. And if you can't afford it, I shouldn't say that, we scholarship people to come there. So those are some things I would do. And then I think I'd interview them. Say, hey, I see you haven't had church for a while. Gosh, we miss you guys. and ask them why they're leaving. Have they ever told you?
Well, we've been through a couple of church splits, and I took the pulpit after my dad left,
Okay,
so a lot of them are still holding grudges against my dad,
okay.
so it's complicated.
Yeah, and here's something that solves every problem. I'll give you another secret. This has solved every problem. Write this down. Pray like your life depends on it. And fast. I fast every year. I begin the year with a 7 to 21 day complete fast, nothing but water. And I've done that every year. And I think it's, by the end of the year, I look back, oh, what a great ride that was. But I know a lot of pastors that don't do that, and there's a lot of things that come out through the year. That's why COVID was so good for me. The other thing to do, okay, pray. Here's another secret. A guy called me in March 2020 and said, "Denny, we just came for a prayer meeting, and we know something's coming down in America. We think it's going to be worldwide. You need to start praying in the Spirit." I said, "I do." He said, "Gerard, I pray in the Spirit every day." No. Double it, if you can, triple that. So I was praying in the Spirit in the car. When I'm driving places, I'm praying in the Spirit. My wife says, "Who are you talking to?" I said, "I don't know, I just pray in the Spirit." And Gerard told me. For 2 weeks, I just prayed, saturated myself with praying in the Spirit. We're Pentecostal, you know, and we don't use the resources God's given us. So I'm praying in the morning, and I never did sense anything was going to happen. But I told him, if something doesn't happen within the next 3 months, I'm going to stone you. Don't be scaring me by praying in the Spirit. Well, of course, you know what happened. By the end of the month, we were shut down. And we grew. I mean, we exploded. And I don't think, all these other pastors, we shut our churches down, and people never came back. Our people came back in droves. I made, my finances grew. I'm not going to tell you how it grew. I want to depress you. But you got to remember, you plant seeds. So those two things, pray, fast, interview your people, love on them. Don't just get past your dad and watch what God does. Okay, I left because your dad left. I'm sorry. We love you guys. I always tell them how much you love them. We'll miss you. You know, I do it every time. I do it with tears in my eyes. Gosh, I'll miss you guys. A lot of them end up coming back. I mean, it's happening to everybody. You know, another question. Another hand. Throw up. Oh, anyone have another question? Good question, though. If you, ruralpastors.org, and we do extravagant hospitality. We teach this at our rural pastors. I slid by it. I realize I'm bringing Disney books. I know Disney's not really popular today, but these books I give to my volunteers. It's to read these books, and they become extravagant greeters and ushers and parking lot hosts. I got parking lot hosts. My executive pastor says, "You're nuts. Why are you doing parking lot hosts?" Because I'm getting ready for tomorrow. You know, so, and now I need them, all right? But these books, Be Our Guest or Creating Magic, are really good. They really give you the idea of why it's so important to have your greeters greeting with extravagance. I mean, they're just pouring love into people who come through your doors. But all this stuff, I mean, I've got so much to share about getting volunteers, keeping volunteers, celebrating volunteers. It's really a good deal, yeah.
What was that Rural Pastors Conference you're talking about?
It's what I do. Talk to Lucas Offer Camp. He's been to it. Ask him what he thinks. If he says lousy, don't come. Ruralpastors with an S .org. See if that comes up, and that'll give you. I hope it's current. My secretary is supposed to. We've got already people that are signing up, but
When is it?
it is October, first week of October, and it's here's the deal: we only take 12 at the most because it becomes very intimate. That's 12 couples
Okay.
that we bring, and it's you can get our app. I think we have an app as well. Here's my kid calling me. It's the one with the good hockey player.
Rural Pastors, plural?
Pastors plural. .org. Is it pull up?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It looks like a blog, what I'm looking at.
I got it at ruralpastors.com.
.com. Oh, she changed it. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's what you said earlier.
.com?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she changed it. I think we just changed it. And people are signing up All right, Terry Ditwater from North Dakota signed up just recently. So we'll have 12 and love to have you there. If it doesn't change, we tell people, if it doesn't change you, your ministry or marriage, we'll give you your money back double. And we know a lot of real pastors can't afford it, so I've got people in my church who say, we will scholarship anyone. They know the value of it. They believe in our church, they believe in our systems. They love helping pastors. We've had some of them come back and speak in church, and they weren't able to speak. One of them couldn't speak because he sat and cried the whole time. He said, you guys saved my life. You saved my marriage and my ministry. Yeah. Talk to Clark Otis, he's out of Webster. Ask Clark if it's a good deal. Webster, South Dakota, that's not North Dakota, right? South Dakota. Yeah. Any other questions? We're done.